The kingdom of heaven is a phrase repeated often in the Bible. Jesus used it to start many of his parables. These parables are short stories with deep meanings. They help believers understand complex spiritual truths in simple ways. Think of them as divine tweets with a lot of retweets. This phrase is crucial because it gives us a glimpse into what heaven is like. It's not just a place you go when you die like some people believe. It's a way of life, a state of being. It's where God's will is done perfectly, and Jesus wanted his followers to live like they were already there. So, he used everyday items and situations to explain it. Why did Jesus use these parables? People back then were just like us. They loved a good story. Stories stick with us, they're memorable. So Jesus used them to teach eternal truths. Parables are like the original TED Talks. Short, impactful, and to the point. In this essay, we'll break down some famous "The Kingdom of Heaven is like parables," we'll use Bible verses and modern analogies, and of course we'll sprinkle in a bit of humor. So let's dive in and see what the Kingdom of Heaven is really like. One of the most famous parables is the parable of the hidden treasure. It's found in Matthew chapter 13 verse 44. The verse goes, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field." What's this all about? Imagine you're digging in your backyard. You hit something hard. It's a treasure chest full of gold. You cover it up quickly and run to sell everything you own. You use that money to buy your backyard. Now, the treasure is legally yours. That's the essence of this parable. The man's actions might seem odd. Why not just take the treasure and run? But Jesus is making a point. The kingdom of heaven is so valuable that it's worth giving up everything else. It brings so much joy that you'd gladly trade all your possessions for it. This parable shows the value of God's kingdom. It's priceless. It's worth more than everything you own, and once you find it, you'll do anything to keep it. That's how precious it is. Now let's look at another parable that's similar but with a twist. The parable of the pearl of great value is another gem. It's found in Matthew chapter 13 verses 45 to 46. The verses say, "Again the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it." Here the story shifts from a hidden treasure to a merchant. This merchant knows pearls. He's been searching for the best one. When he finally finds it, he knows it's worth everything he owns. So, he sells everything to buy that one pearl. This parable is about recognizing the value of the kingdom of heaven. The merchant knew a good thing when he saw it. He was willing to give up everything else for it. That's how we should view the kingdom of heaven. It's the ultimate find. The pearl represents the beauty and worth of God's kingdom. It's perfect in every way, and it's worth every sacrifice. This parable teaches us about priorities. What are we willing to give up for the kingdom of heaven? Both parables emphasize the immense value of the kingdom of heaven. But let's bring these ancient stories into the modern world with some relatable analogies. Imagine you're a tech-savvy urbanite. You're out exploring with your metal detector. Suddenly it beeps like crazy. You start digging and find the latest iPhone buried in perfect condition. You cover it up and rush to sell your old gadgets. You need to buy that piece of land to make the iPhone legally yours. This is the hidden treasure parable in today's terms. The iPhone represents the kingdom of heaven. It's so valuable and desirable that you'd sell everything to get it. It's a game changer. The same way the kingdom of heaven changes everything. The excitement of finding that iPhone mirrors the joy of discovering God's kingdom. It's a life-altering moment. You realize nothing else compares. This modern analogy helps us grasp the parable's deep meaning. Now let's give the pearl of great value a modern twist. Section 5. Modern-day analogy. The pearl of great value. Picture this. You're a sneakerhead. You've been searching for the rarest pair of Air Jordans. One day you find them in a small, hidden shop. They're pristine, the holy grail of sneakers. You sell your entire collection to buy these rare kicks. This is the pearl of great value in today's context. The rare Jordans represent the kingdom of heaven. They're worth every penny and more. You'll sacrifice your whole collection for them. That's how precious they are. The satisfaction of owning those rare Jordans parallels the fulfillment of being part of God's kingdom. It's the ultimate prize, and it's worth everything you own. This modern analogy makes the ancient parable relatable. Now let's move on to another famous parable, the parable of the mustard seed. 6. The parable of the mustard seed. The parable of the mustard seed is another classic. It's found in Matthew chapter 13 verses 31 to 32. The verses say, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches." This parable is about growth and potential. The mustard seed is tiny, but when it's planted it grows into a large tree. It's a symbol of how the kingdom of heaven starts small but grows big. It's about faith and how it can expand and transform. The mustard seed represents the beginning of faith. It might start small, but it has the potential to grow into something great. The tree symbolizes the flourishing of God's kingdom. It's a place of refuge and comfort. This parable teaches us not to underestimate small beginnings. Every big thing starts small. The kingdom of heaven might begin with a small act of faith, but it has the power to grow beyond imagination. Now let's explore another parable that complements the mustard seed, the parable of the yeast. 7. The parable of the yeast. The parable of the yeast is found in Matthew chapter 13 verse 33. The verse says, "The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough." This parable is about influence and transformation. Yeast is a small ingredient, but it transforms the whole dough. It represents the kingdom of heaven's power to transform lives and situations. Even a little bit of God's kingdom can have a huge impact. The woman's action symbolizes the spreading of God's kingdom. Just as yeast spreads through the dough, the kingdom of heaven spreads through the world. It influences everything it touches. It's about the hidden power of faith. This parable teaches us about the transformative power of the kingdom of heaven. It might start small, but its impact is significant. It changes everything from the inside out. Now let's bring the mustard seed parable into the modern age. Pause 3. 8. Modern day analogy, the mustard seed. Picture this. You're a startup entrepreneur. You have a tiny idea, like a mustard seed. You start small, maybe in your garage. But with hard work and faith, your startup grows. It becomes a huge company, like a big tree. People find jobs and security under its branches. This is the mustard seed parable in today's context. Your small idea represents the kingdom of heaven. It starts tiny but has the potential to grow big. Your startup success mirrors the growth of God's kingdom. The joy of seeing your startup flourish parallels the joy of seeing God's kingdom expand. It's about believing in the potential of small beginnings. This modern analogy helps us understand the parable's powerful message. Now let's give the yeast parable a modern twist. 9. Modern day analogy, the yeast. Imagine you're a social media influencer. You start with a small following, like yeast. You create meaningful content. Slowly, your influence spreads, your followers increase. Your messages impact thousands of lives, just like yeast changes the dough. This is the yeast parable in today's terms. Your influence represents the kingdom of heaven. It starts small but spreads widely. Your social media growth mirrors the transformative power of God's kingdom. The satisfaction of seeing your influence grow parallels the impact of God's kingdom. It's about the hidden power of faith and influence. This modern analogy makes the ancient parable relatable. Now let's talk about how urban humor can be subtly woven into these parables. 10. Subtle urban humor and biblical parables. Urban humor can make parables more engaging. Imagine Jesus today, telling these stories in a city park. He'd use modern language and references. Maybe he'd compare the kingdom of heaven to finding the last PS5 on Black Friday. It's relatable and funny. Humor helps people remember the message. A joke or a funny comparison sticks in the mind. It makes the parables accessible. It breaks down barriers and invites people in. Jesus knew this, which is why he used everyday items in his stories. Using urban humor doesn't mean disrespecting the sacred. It's about making the message clear and memorable. It's about connecting with people where they are. It's about showing that the kingdom of heaven is relevant today, just as it was 2,000 years ago. Now, let's wrap up with a conclusion that ties everything together. 11. Conclusion, tying it all together. The phrase, the kingdom of heaven, is like opens a window to God's eternal truths. Through parables, Jesus revealed the value, growth, and transformative power of his kingdom. These stories are timeless. They speak to the heart, no matter the era. By using modern analogies, we see these parables in a new light. A hidden treasure, rare sneakers, a startup, or social media influence all help us grasp the profound messages. They show us that the kingdom of heaven is priceless, growing, and transformative. Urban humor adds a layer of relatability. It makes the stories stick. It shows that God's kingdom is not just a distant concept but a present reality. It's here, influencing, changing, and inviting us to be a part of it. So let's embrace these parables with joy and understanding. Let's live like we're part of the kingdom of heaven. After all, it's worth everything we have, and it's the best story ever told. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. God bless.